Hello and welcome. My name is D'Amico L. Cunningham. I will be your instructor as we start the wonderful world of UDK. Now, as most people know, UDK is the free version of the Unreal 3 engine. And the development inside of UDK can be quite daunting in the beginning, but we're going to go through a couple of helpful hints throughout the interface so that you can see some of the key terms and see some of the key things inside of the UDK's interface that make navigating it a little bit easier. So the first thing I want to do, since I have my preferences already set, the first thing that I want to do is show you how a normal UDK would look when you open it up. So when you first open up UDK, you're presented with this basic scene. And this basic scene really has nothing to do with anything. This scene is just in here to kind of show you a little bit of how you can set up a daylight scene inside of UDK. So what's in here? Let's see what's in here. Let's look around and see what's in here. So if I look at this, if I look at my scene currently, I can see that I have this red maroon brush, like this pinkish reddish maroon brush in here. This brush is my builder brush. Now, the builder brush is like a mold. So the builder brush is almost like the God brush. With the builder brush, you actually can take this brush and change it into any other shape. Now, I know you might be saying, well, it doesn't look like a brush, it looks like a box. But just know that inside of UDK, this is considered a brush. If I go into Wireframe really quick, and I can do that by hitting Alt and 2 on my keyboard, so you can see, I can see wireframe mode right here. So at the top of my toolbar for this window, and this is the perspective window, and I know that it's the perspective window because it has a little P right beside it. And then right beside that, I know that I'm looking at this in real time. And the reason why I know it's real time and what real time is that real time actually shows everything moving. When I turn this off or I hit Control R to deactivate it, you'll see that my clouds no longer change and move because they have been turned off. They're no longer in real-time mode. So that means that all the effects inside of the UDK are no longer active inside of my viewport. Right? So I can hit Control R to turn off real-time and turn on real-time. So the first thing in here, across my toolbar, I have the brush wireframe mode. So if I hit Alt 1, you can see that I'm in brush wireframe mode. So this is going to show me all my brushes in wireframe. And then Alt 2 is just basic wireframe. Now, when I bring a brush in here, it'll make more sense as to what a brush is and what these other elements are. Because we have one brush, because I have my builder brush in here. So as you can see, I have my builder brush sitting right here. But then I have this box sitting down here. Now, this isn't a brush. If I go into wireframe mode, we can actually see that this is green. This is not a brush, this is actual geometry. Geometry inside of UDK shows up with a green wireframe, and geometry is anything that comes out from another package, like for instance Maya or 3D Studio Max or Softimage. Those are all meshes. Those are all something that's made up of polygons, and it was brought into the UDK world. So whenever you look in wireframe and you see something that has a green wireframe to it, you'll automatically know that that's a mesh. That's something that was generated inside of a digital content creation program, much like Maya and 3D Studio Max. Alright? Now, to get back to a lit view, all you have to do is hit Alt 4. So I'm going to hit the Alt key and 4, and that brings me back to my lit view. If you hit Alt 3 will show you an unlit view. So it'll show you what your world looks like without any of the lighting information inside of it. Right? And then Alt 4 shows you all of your lighting information. Now, something else that's very important. How do you navigate this viewport? Now, to be able to navigate inside of the perspective viewport, when you come in here and you left mouse click, you can orbit your camera. So you can see my camera is orbiting around, and if I drag in and out with my mouse. I'm still holding the left mouse button. I drag in and out. I can dolly my camera in and out. If I hold my left and my right mouse button, you can see that I can actually crane my camera up or crane it down. So I'm able to move it up and down. And then if I hold just the right mouse button by itself, you can see that that lets me orbit the camera around the view. Right? So I have a center pivot where I'm looking at, and then I'm just orbiting the camera. If I left mouse click, it lets me dolly the camera in and out, as well as pan it or track it left and right. Now the other thing that I can do is I can hold down the L key, whatever I have selected. So let's say right now you can see that I have this box selected. If I hold down the L key and I use my left mouse, I don't want to click on it. If I use my L key and use my left mouse, it'll actually lock my view to what I'm currently looking at. And that works. If I use the L key and right mouse, I can actually dolly into my object that I have selected. And if I hold the left mouse, it uses the pivot point of the object I have selected as a pivot point for my camera. And when I let go of the L key, you'll see once again I get my normal controls back. Right? So that's first things first. Right? So let's talk about what we can do with this world and how this world functions. And we'll do that when we actually look at one more thing in the interface, and then once we do that, we will come back and we will talk a little bit more about brushes inside of UDK. So one of the last things I want to look at is, normally in most of your 3D programs, you're used to looking at a quad view. And the quad view usually has a perspective view and then 3 orthographic views. UDK has this as well. If we look here in the top right corner of UDK, there is this button right here, which is Maximize Viewport. This is my Maximize Viewport button. When I click this, it will unmaximize my viewport, and I can see all of the objects inside of my space. So I can see from here, this is my side view, this is my front view, and my top view. Now, one thing that's really cool about these views is that when you zoom into this view, to any one of these orthographic views, all of your views will try to zoom in to the same selected object, right? So when you're trying to zoom into this, they'll all zoom in to whatever you have framed up, which is really nice, and it's really a great way to be able to work with this, right? So let's recap what we talked about. First thing we talked about is the builder brush. The builder brush cannot be deleted. It is a mold. It cannot be deleted. It's always going to be in your scene. Even if you made a playable game, the builder brush would always still be there, right? It's kind of like the family member you can't get rid of. It's not going anywhere. It's always going to be around, right? The next thing we talked about was how to navigate through our viewports, at least with changing from wireframe to unlit mode. So remember, to go into wireframe mode, I'm going to hit, I'm going to come in here and end up hitting, make sure I'm in perspective first. I'll be able to hit Alt-2, and that takes me into wireframe mode. Alt-1 takes me into brush wireframe mode, and then Alt-3 takes me into unlit mode, and then Alt-4 brings me into lit mode. Now, we have a couple of other modes in here, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. All right? So, in my next lesson, we're going to go through and talk about what these CSG brushes are all about inside of UDK and actually see what we can do. We'll be right back after this.